Hi, I'm Alice from Arizona. Leave a like and subscribe to this channel. I don't remember my mom at all. In the past, when I was asking questions, my dad either avoided the conversation or said that she was a terrible person. The day after I was born, my mom went out of the maternity clinic to get some fresh air, and no one from our family ever saw her again. After this incident, Dad stopped trusting people completely and was always afraid for me at the slightest pretext. What if one day I disappeared just like Mom? Once when I was just a baby, we went shopping to a nearby town and met his colleague at the mall. The man said that he had never seen a prettier child than me. This enraged my dad so much. He hid me behind his back and started to yell at his colleague. If only he tried to get closer to me even by a centimeter. Later, my dad was constantly reminding me that I should never talk to strangers on the street. To make sure that I had all the best things and lacked nothing, my father worked in a large pharmaceutical company day and night. So I spent most of my time with Uncle Bill, who lived with his son Sam in the house next door and worked night shifts. Uncle Bill and I were very much alike. I saw his childhood photos. We literally looked the same. My uncle adored me, but his son Sam, my classmate, hated me for some reason. Most likely, he was jealous. Because I was doing the best in the class and always getting main roles in all the school theater performances, whereas Sam had big problems with academic performance. Although my cousin was trying very hard to get the approval of my uncle, who always set me as an example to him and complimented me a lot. One Thanksgiving day, our whole family, Uncle, Sam, Dad, and I went to the park, where a Thanksgiving family sports competition was held. Dad was frowning, hanging on the phone, solving work issues, and not having any fun at all. Same goes for Sam. He was pouting and looking very offended. When the competition began, my uncle managed to play for two teams, mine and Sam's. My dad was busy and stood aside. My cousin looked distracted and was very slow. Even Uncle's active participation couldn't save Sam from failure. While Uncle and I were going for a record, we were awarded a gold medal, which the judge put around my neck. Immediately after the competition, Sam attacked me and snatched the medal from my chest. I was outraged and demanded my prize back, but Sam threatened me with his fist and hissed angrily, "You won only because of my dad, so this is my prize. And remember, he's my dad. Stay away from him." I couldn't help myself and jumped at Sam, and we rolled head over heels, hitting each other with all of our strength. Dad and Uncle were shocked by what was happening and rushed to take us apart. The next time, Sam behaved even more disgustingly. The four of us went to see a movie, and we met my uncle's distant relatives. For some reason, they didn't notice Sam at all, and were looking at me all surprised. And then they said to my uncle, "Bill, we didn't know you had such a charming daughter. You two look so much alike." At that moment, I accidentally noticed the look on Sam's face. My cousin turned green and seemed ready to burst with anger. My uncle and I liked the same music, and we were laughing our heads off at movie jokes that Sam and Dad just didn't get. And sometimes I was catching myself thinking, it would be so great if my uncle was my dad and my dad was Sam's dad. Once a girl from my class invited me to a birthday party, but my father refused to let me go. He didn't trust people that he didn't know very well. So he was very afraid that something terrible might happen to me at a party. Uncle Bill stood up for me and told Dad that Alice should definitely go and have fun, and that communication with peers is only good for her. Dad started to grind his teeth, but nevertheless he agreed to let me go. He was really annoyed by his decision and was in great mental turmoil. "Bill, if anything happens to my girl, it will be entirely your fault," Dad snapped at Uncle Bill. I had a lot of fun at the birthday party. We were dancing right in the garden, stuffing our faces with strawberry ice cream, and we all helped the birthday girl blow out the candles on a huge 3-tiered cake with whipped cream. When suddenly we heard a loud crack and a scream. The attention of numerous guests was riveted to the metal garden fence. Hanging on it was my dad. His jeans had gotten caught on a sharp edge and then snapped loudly, but didn't come completely apart. So my dad was hanging on the fence, struggling like a fish on a hook. It turns out he was so nervous that he couldn't stay at home and decided to follow me. My father just wanted to be there and protect me if anything happened. Naturally, the next day, my embarrassment became the main news at school. Thanks to Dad, he made me look like a laughingstock. And only Sam was walking around all satisfied, telling about this terrible incident to everyone who didn't know yet. In high school, I started noticing that my cousin was acting really weird. He began to skip classes and leave in an unknown direction. So one day I decided to follow him, and I saw that my cousin was sitting on a bench in the park with a suspicious-looking middle-aged woman who was touching his hand. Something seethed inside me, and I decided to intervene. "Who are you, and what do you want from Sam?" I unleashed my righteous anger on the woman. Her answer made me numb, and I went completely red. "I'm his mom." Turned out that Sam was seeing this woman without telling Uncle Bill. My cousin asked me not to tell anyone about them meeting because my uncle would not approve and would stop everything. I decided not to interfere in the relations of my relatives. That's not my business. But one incident made me change my mind. One day before the lesson started, I saw Sam's open backpack. Inside it was some cheese, sausages, canned food, and other groceries, and also money. A way too large amount for a student's pocket expenses. It wasn't hard to guess that my cousin was stealing from his dad and giving everything he got to his mother. I told my dad about the situation, and when my dad heard this, his hair stood on end. According to him, Sam's mom was a bad person. After getting married to Uncle Sam, she was almost never home and didn't take care of the baby at all. And after some time, she was arrested for aiding a well-known criminal. Dad thought it was urgent to tell my uncle what was happening, but I asked him to wait so I could talk to Sam myself. At the same time, I was sure that my stubborn cousin would never listen to me. So the next day I went to the park half an hour earlier than Sam usually did, and of course I found the woman who called herself his mother on that very bench. Don't you dare ruin Sam's life. Where were you for so many years when he needed you so much? Do you really think you're his mother? I started furiously. In response, I heard threats rain down on me. This woman promised that if I interfered in her relationship with her son, my father and I would have to pay for it, and we would have such a sad future that I couldn't imagine it in my worst nightmares. I didn't get scared. And after the park, I went straight to my uncle, and unexpectedly, I found him sobbing over a letter. It turned out that Sam had left home and wrote a farewell note. It said that Uncle Bill didn't love him at all, but loved Alice, that is, me, and that he's leaving to be with his mother who loves him. Uncle Bill lost control over himself and was shouting, and I was to blame for everything. "Because of you, I lost my only child. Don't you dare come over here again. I don't want to see you." I understood his feelings and decided that in time my uncle would get better. Once on my way from school, I found the keys to his car near our gate. When I went to my uncle's house to return them, I saw Uncle Bill lying on the lawn. A man in a mask with a wallet in his hands was running to the terrace exit, which was straight towards me. I didn't get lost, and with all my strength, I hit the robber in the head with my heavy backpack. The mask fell off his face. My uncle, who managed to get up, and I saw a familiar face. It was Sam. At first, Uncle Bill was speechless, but after a few seconds, he said softly, "Why would you do that, son? You could have asked me for money. Come back home. I need you." "Yeah, right. You're not fit to hold a candle to my mother," Sam replied disdainfully. He took the money out of his father's wallet and threw it on the lawn with no hint of shame. Then he counted the banknotes, hid them under his jacket, and without saying another word, quickly left the crime scene. Uncle Bill blamed me for everything again. He said that I knew about Sam and his mother from the beginning, but I didn't say anything when there was a chance to influence him and prevent his escape. On the same day, my uncle packed up and moved to another area of the city, away from my father and me. "Bon voyage," said Dad when he heard about the incident. My brother couldn't raise his son to be a normal person, but it's only his fault. "Don't you dare talk about Uncle Bill like that," I yelled at my dad. "I wish he was my dad, not you." Exactly 1 second later, I regretted what I had said, but it was too late. After this incident, my relationship with my father became formal and very awkward, and a year later I went to college, got a job, and started living on my own. One day on my way to work, I saw Sam. But what did he look like? He was limping. His clothes were all ripped and his face was clawed to shreds. I loudly called my cousin by his name. He turned around and was stunned, and then he jumped on my neck and hugged me tightly. "Alice, I'm so glad to see you. After I moved, my mother almost immediately stopped taking care of me. I didn't have money to pay for school, so I had to drop out. Compassionate neighbors are feeding me." I gave Sam the keys to my apartment and asked him to wait there for me. "And when I get back from work, we will definitely come up with something." How horrified was I when I returned home and found no Sam, no household appliances, no electronics, and no furniture. My cousin had taken everything. I went to my dad's because it wasn't safe to stay in the apartment I rented. He greeted me warmly, and we spent a nice family evening together, and at some point my father said the words that pierced me to my very heart. "Alice, I want to apologize to you for not saying often enough that you're the most wonderful child. I'm lucky to have you and I love you very much. I understood a lot and I want to change our relationship. We have only good things ahead of us." I burst into tears and hugged my father tightly, and a couple of hours later Uncle Bill arrived. My dad called him and we told him about Sam. The next day, Dad, Uncle Bill, and I went to the place where I met Sam the day before. There we saw him again, but he'd changed so much. He was wearing brand new clothes and holding the latest iPhone in his hand. Apparently, he dressed up after selling my things. Uncle and Dad were speechless, but at the same moment, out of nowhere, 2 policemen appeared and rounded Sam up. He was arrested as a suspect of robbery, and after that he was imprisoned for 7 months. After his release, my cousin came to live with Uncle Bill again and even returned to school to catch up. One day after work, I saw a truck with my once stolen things near my house, and Sam was standing next to it. It turned out that in his free time, he had worked part-time and saved up the necessary amount to compensate the damage he had caused me. "Alice, you can't even imagine how sorry I am for what I did. Please forgive me. When we met last time, you wanted to help me, but I backstabbingly lied and robbed you. My dear sister, I want to start over. Will you let me?" He spoke to me very sincerely and tenderly, as never before in my life. It was hard for me to hold back my tears. I smiled, hugged him tightly, and whispered, "Of course, brother. Just let me get the furniture into the apartment first."